About a year and a half ago, scientists from Columbia University reached out to me, and he wanted to innovate a new soil test kit. And he had a methodology that he devised based on an EPA method, which measured the bioavailable lead in soil by doing an acid digestion and then adding the active compound in my swabs, which is called sodium rhodizine, to a filtered final product, and that would turn a shade of orange or red or purple depending on the concentration of lead in the soil, and then of that, whatever migrated into the liquid. And then he told me about the glowing lead test. He said there's a group in the Netherlands who's come up with this, and I was like, wow, that's insane.
Awesome. So Eric, here we are on the Physio podcast. I am a big fan. I've been a big fan now for a couple of weeks, but the instant that I came across your work and your enthusiasm in helping us become aware of, well, how prevalent lead is in our everyday lives and really in everything that surrounds us, and the impact that it can have on our health and well-being, I instantly knew intuitively that I had to get you on the show to help make this information more accessible to all of the citizen scientists that tune in. And so with that being said, man, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. My pleasure.
So typically the way I start these shows is I ask why. You know, you're certainly passionate about what you do, but if we can start there, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you do what you do, man?
Well, I mean, the short answer is it's my job. I do it for money. And I know, I mean, it's kind of an uncomfortable thing because lead poisoning prevention is super important. And like whenever money gets mixed into anything, like that's an obvious ulterior motive. And the reason I got into lead poisoning, like lead identification really in 2019 was because I saw that there was a product on the market called Lead Check. And it was a patent protected product being sold by 3M for about 10 years. Prior to that, it was sold by another company, a private company. And it was grossly overpriced and it was grossly over-engineered. And it was engineered specifically to protect it. And I don't even know if that patent would have held up. Nobody ever tried them and said, this is obvious, this isn't something that you can patent. And about a year and a half ago, scientists from Columbia University reached out to me, and he wanted to innovate a new soil test kit. And he had a methodology that he devised based on an EPA method, which measured the bioavailable lead in soil by doing an acid digestion and then adding the active compound in my swabs, which is called sodium rhodizine, to a filtered final product. And that would turn a shade of orange or red or purple, depending on the concentration of lead in the soil, and then of that, whatever migrated into the liquid. And then he told me about this, the glowing lead test. He said there's a group in the Netherlands who's come up with this. And I was like, wow, that's insane. So I looked up, information about it, and I said, wow, this is like actually awesome. This is so much more exciting because swabbing is not fun. It is not fun. The information gets out there now isn't really the kind of information that I would digest or that any of my peers would. And I'm 31. So people my age are most likely to have children. And if they're going to scoff at the kind of information that's out there, a different kind of information has to go out there. And I know social media is the kind of media they consume predominantly. And so interspersing some information with some entertainment is a really effective way to get people to think about something that, I mean, it's 2023. Lead is so like forgotten about generally.
Right. Yeah, I think, I understand that there's obviously a financial incentive for you, but I think I'm more impressed by how you do what you do. I mean, I think for a lot of people, mundane topic, like who wants to go out of their way to test for lead? But I think that the enthusiasm that you bring to this topic and showing us how empowering that can be, and in fact, doing the research just at the same time, because we have plenty of research to support how dangerous it is, especially the chronic exposure. I think that's priceless, man. And I really admire the way that you do it. And I'll tell you something, there's a really famous quote by Richard Buckminster Fuller. It goes, if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will inspire new ways of thinking. But you're an exception in the sense that you're doing that, but on top of that, you're teaching people and they're your students without feeling like they're students because of the enthusiasm that you bring to the testing. So in my opinion, you're an incredible educator. Absolutely incredible.
Wow. That's great. I mean, that's like giving me goosebumps. I really appreciate that so much.
What do you think? Can we get into some of the ways that most people can reduce their exposure to lead? What would you say is like the low-hanging fruit?
The lowest hanging fruit is probably, the biggest issues are paint, water, could be food, or like items that you have around your house. Like that's basically, or like it could be soil too, but that's very area specific. And I know that lead poisoning from soil exists, but I don't know that that's the chief or even one of the top 3 in the U.S.
It is.
So the easiest one to do that everybody could do right away, if they have a screwdriver or a coin, is test their water supply to their house. So the service line is going to come out if they have a basement, or it could come up from the floor. It's going to go into their little water meter and then feed their whatever the setup they have, heating system in the hot water tank. And all they got to do to understand if that pipe is made of lead is scrape it. And if it deforms and there's a silvery metal, that means that it's made of lead. If it's hard, and silver is steel. If it's copper color like a penny, that's obviously not lead either. And this is a really good low-cost way. There's like an incredible push in the U.S. So
I live in like an Art Deco building in South Beach. Yeah, I think it was built in like the 30s or 40s or 50s. It's an old building. It was renovated, like as you can tell, it's a fully renovated unit. But I'm curious, in that case, to renovate, and this was like a really nice renovation. My landlord is awesome. She has really high standards. But even then, should I be concerned about, let's say, the lead that could have been used in the original layout and original layers of paint?
Probably not. I mean, if the wall is painted over and it's not deteriorating, you're not going to have lead coming off of that. There's a chance, of course, that the renovation was done completely improperly and there could have been residual dust all over everything. But, typically people, when they renovate, put in the floors last. So, over any dust that could have accumulated. But the real risk is doing during the renovation. It's when the walls are being ripped down, if paint is being stripped off of itself. That's when the dust... Exactly. And like lead isn't a danger on the wall. If it's on the wall, it's intact. And I'm not directly chewing on the wall. Yeah. Although there is a risk, you can't see it here, but a windowsill.
Environmental Protection Agency courses. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to make it clear for those who aren't aware. It's an Environmental Protection Agency has a certain standard, and they offer these courses.
Yes, and this is really an interesting situation because the lead inspectors detect lead-based paint. And that term, lead-based paint, is really crucial, I think, because it's determined by lead paint that's over 5,000 parts per million, or 1 milligram of lead per square centimeter. Below that, it's not regulated. And there's no protections if you have it in your home, and there's no requirement to renovate in a certain way. And this 1 milligram per square centimeter, or 5,000 parts per million, was decided upon in the late 80s and early 90s. I think it was based on the ability of X-ray fluorescence spectrometers to detect lead in the homes of people, because the government in 1992, with Title 10, which was a federal bill that was passed that had a lot of funding attached to it, really sparked the initiative to start detecting lead in people's homes.
Do we kind of just retain more and more and more of it? Like as we age, if we don't mitigate exposure, does it just continue to accumulate, or does your body have a way to discard it in some fashion when we're exposed?
Yeah, we can excrete lead, but slowly. It's a heavy metal, so like mercury, it definitely bioaccumulates. Another two elemental supplements that were covered in that study were magnesium and calcium. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to understand that that study was done on rats. And there's another study too. Yeah, I love rat studies. The rat study is good for me.
Yeah, in any case, rats. Thank you for pointing it out. Very important. Thank you, man. And I'll tell you that I started the podcast because I was so afraid to engage with experts that I know I needed to engage with to carry the science forward. And it's been a huge growth project for me. I mean, tremendous beyond, again, like just beyond belief. So I, suggest that this thing that you're so afraid of, continue to pursue it. It's going to give you growth personally, and it's going to help everyone on the receiving end to grow so much and to be healthier and to be better. So, here's to more growth through discomfort, man.
Yeah, I'm into that. That's definitely that's a big one in life, which isn't immediately obvious to me anyway. To be fair, but learning is great. But yeah, thank you again.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see you soon.